this the way to run the city? Why not talk with us?
It is a story you saw first on 10news.com. Tonight, the former chief of staff for disgraced Mayor Bob Filner is telling all about his last days on the job.
In her first television interview since the scandal, Burdick talked to Team 10 investigator Allison Ash about her decision to stay on for so long. So we saw the video of you chasing her. Were there any hard feelings about that?
Actually, no, and I asked her about that. Lee Burdick told me she understands that I had a job to do. And at the time, members of Mayor Bob Filner's staff were not talking. Now she's written a book called Filner's Monster with a scary looking cover that you see behind me. It tells her version of what happened and why she stayed on that sinking ship.
If we only had it all to do over again, I would have trusted my instincts, which told me Bob Filner was an ass.
Lee Burdick was by Bob Filner's side when he announced he'd get treatment for his bad behavior with women. She claims she never witnessed that behavior, but in her book reveals there was a red flag when he showed up at the office late one evening with a woman who was not the one he was engaged to.
Sexy attire with long blonde hair who couldn't even look me in the eye. And of course I inferred from that it was probably an activity that was a bit more than city business that was going to go on in his office that evening.
She told no one and said she was surprised when communications director Irene McCormick Jackson went public with her claims, including that Filner wanted her to leave her panties at home when she came to the office.
It wasn't until August when I heard about what Filner had been doing to his executive assistant that validated everything that Irene had said. And I felt horrible guilt that I hadn't believed her wholeheartedly from the beginning.
Burdick is scheduled to testify in the upcoming trial for the executive assistant, who is now suing Filner and the city for what Burdick says was daily harassment.
Lee, why go out the back door?
In the summer of 2013, Burdick dodged questions about whether Filner would resign in the wake of nearly 24 women claiming he harassed them too. And she wrote about this confrontation in her book.
Your persistence as I walked back to City Hall was unlimited, and I ended up scooching into the Rock Bottom restaurant and brewery, which was a bit ironic under the circumstances because it certainly felt we were at rock bottom back at City Hall.
Burdick hasn't spoken to Bob Filner since the debacle, but if she had the chance,
I would say, Bob, you're delusional. You're mentally ill. You need help.
Burdick says Bob Filner wasn't the only villain in the story. She says City Attorney Jan Goldsmith had an agenda to ruin Filner even before he took the oath of office. Filner, she said, just gave him the ammunition that he needed. And of course, she's putting out a book, and that book will be available online beginning next week.
A lot of people want to read that. I love the reference to rock bottom, which also leads me back to the point. She says she felt horrible. Why'd she stay on then?
Well, she says she stayed on because there was still the work of the city to do, and that's what she had signed on to do. And she also felt at a certain point that she needed to protect the men and the women inside the mayor's office from the mayor himself. And so she hung in there till the very bitter end, and it, as you recall, was bitter.
Yeah, it was very
sure
bitter.
was. And she is certainly the person to fill the pages of a book like that. Thank you so much, Allison.